take on more by the John Deere guy?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Go up there and
I was
do
back in there
first one.
where they're putting in that Glamour Park. I drove back in there, looked at that last fall.
That RV park?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're putting in that. Well, it's more of a, it's called Glamour camping. They got little places set up where they can put tents and igloos up and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we approved that last year.
Okay, good, good.
But,
Did you see your building? Yes. Oh, nice. Very nice. Oh, okay.
They get, well, you don't get over that far, go snowmobiling across 72, but not in that area.
We have a snowmobile. We sold it years ago, but we used to live in Hi, Kim.
Hey there, good to see you.
Nice. We lived up in St. Ignace.
Good to see one more too.
Yes.
Good to have you back too, Carl.
We moved to St. Ignace for about 13 years.
Goodness, it's been a while.
And so we got snowmobiles. And have you ever snowmobiled up in the UP?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love it. The snowmobile.
Yeah, well, we actually snowmobile. Newbury was easy to get to. We've gone over to
I know it's
West
been
End,
here.
Lake Owee, and did a whole saddlebag trek across Wisconsin a couple of times.
Really?
And they've gone up to Wawa and Iron Bridge in Canada, snowmobile up there. Been doing it
For the
about
public
45
hearing and for the
years.
site plan review.
You know, the one trip.
All right, now this one is the attorney. Oh, this top one is too. This is out of the pack.
And so they actually.
Yep.
But, you know, my grandma's long since died and the whole town's fallen down and so.
Oh, from the book?
But that is.
Okay. A little bit, but not enough.
Well, we stayed at.
I can trade you.
No, that's
great. Well, from Paradise.
Yes.
They snowmobiled over to Sioux St. Marie back.
This is all meeting.
During the daytime and,
I'm just trying to sort it. And this is the special meeting stuff, right?
Wisconsin trips, like 5 days to 1,000 miles. It was just beautiful. There was nobody on the trails. They were running. They go 200 miles in a day.
Now, do you snowmobile anymore?
Well, this winter we only got. Last year I got
Marijuana.
No, last year.
And fire.
My Tennessee guy.
Which we probably won't get to.
Road. He was a little ditch there. She went sort of way too fast and came up. Hit the nose and broke her arm. First right.
Oh, I would have done
I
this,
did about
except I had a lot of.
200 or so the year before.
I can't move the meeting as the chair. I cannot move the meeting to 6 o'clock without a consensus of the board.
Right.
So if we had agreed to do that like we did for the last meeting, then I could move it to 6. We did that a couple meetings ago. But on my own authority, the only thing I can do is I can call a special meeting, but I can't change the time of the regular meeting. And I also couldn't have done it because our regular meeting said there was a public hearing at 7 o'clock. So I wasn't going to change that. Because then our notice would have been invalid.
Put me in my car, put my son in the chair, rode back to the house. And my parents, I took the hospital.
Oh, and this is everybody's. Okay, that makes more sense. This is everybody's package. One for me and everybody.
Yes.
I didn't send out a notice this morning. Looks like maybe I should have.
That's why I walk so funny.
Now, where did you get those fixed at?
That was Dr. McAndrews.
1, 2, 3.
Up here. The other one was downstairs. That was in 1995.
Wow. Well, I've heard that that was different. My we have snowmobiles years ago, but I've heard now that the suspension.
The rest of them weren't necessary, but they copied off, when I copied the email,
Yes,
it copied
yes.
the entire team.
And afterward, and everybody's like this.
Yeah.
Then like this, now I'm gonna go next week, and maybe by Wednesday. not there.
Yeah.
But now I'm right.
Very glad to see you.
That's gonna deliver me.
Oh,
I couldn't find my keys to my car,
I had that problem this
which
morning.
is really weird because they were lost like a week ago for a week. And you know, on the inside, there's a door where you put your hand to close it. That's like some like little, they were there. Golly, I called and went to Costco, anywhere I went.
Anywhere you've been, yeah.
Today.
And it's not like you could have gone home without the keys.
Right, but, well, but I didn't go in that car. That was the thing. I had to.
Any place you might have dropped them.
Yeah, I just think like, I got, but how did they end up right in that? Like, that's impossible. So now they're lost again.
Oh, you didn't find them?
I found them. They were in that weird little,
I was gonna say, I thought you said you found them.
but then I lost them again.
I am going to grab some water before we get started. I'm gonna need it.
I mean, it just looks so weird. It looked like the screws there when the new ones came out. Yeah, whereas it's, you know,
Yeah.
and after the new ones came out. 2, 3 years later, the first year, they came out, I think, 20.
Now, do they still make those?
No, they make suspensions and the M10
Like this
suspension.
must
They
have
make
been rough.
sporting
Did
stuff.
somebody feel like a mic
Yeah,
drop?
when the economy crashed.
Because I barely tapped it.
Still free to swap it out.
When they quit making them, 2000.
No.
I had that thing 10 years and I could get parts
There's
from
only
it
5 board numbers, they
quicker
won't know.
than I could from a dealer here on any other side.
Now, what do you write now?
I've got right now I've got
I feel
a
like I've just been running.
2016 Polaris 800. What they call it?
You know, we bumped the meeting an
Oh, is
hour.
it right?
Getting here a few minutes late is fair.
That's a rocket.
You know, and not that it's your fault, but take it personally, because I was kind of cussing at you because it's set like, why couldn't this have been yesterday?
Last year, man, I got
6 o'clock snuck up on.
It's not, it's just that it's nice out. Yesterday was crap.
There's snow down here. And my buddy's got a place over Houghton Lake.
Yes.
He tried to go to Morristown once. He says, we had 60 miles. The rest of the winter, he had to go to the UP.
Yeah.
And going to UP now, they already.
Oh, yeah, now that it's nice
Yeah,
out.
riding 200 miles
Yeah,
a
check
day
the
is
weather
bad.
ahead of time. It's
You know, I
gonna
have
be
trails up there.
70 and sunny.
Well, what I would right up there would find like St. Nicholas, you'd have to ride till like. you'd have to
I should have
plan
more
to
Star Wars.
go up to Trout Lake and get
Oh,
to
yeah. Stuff just talking. But up in Canada, that's even more remote up there. You go out.
Everything that's on the special meeting is also on the regular.
The loop from Whitewater up to oh gosh, can't think of the name of it. They got to cross that bridge they had there.
Have you ever been from the Sioux to Wawa?
Free.
Have you ever driven from the Sioux to
No,
Wawa?
I haven't, but I have. In fact, we were having dinner in Wawa and one of our buddies work came in. He was doing that.
No.
But it was just kind of.
Yeah,
Now we
no.
just need to take care of
We're
the
looking
barns
up there
before
right
we go.
in, like Iron Bridge, going to Iron Bridge. And go up to,
And everything else is bonus.
where's that ski resort off of the sea?
Search mine.
Yeah, it's 100 miles each way.
Well, we have an equine vet clinic and a barn.
Up to.
Those are the two things that are
Elliott Lake.
the most critical in my opinion. Because those are the ones that have economic impact and are
Then the other
affecting
one,
people
Wawa, over
Right.
to,
in real time.
Right. The building season. is
They're not
here.
hypothetical, they're now.
Breaking the name,
That's right.
you go up and around from there.
All right,
Yeah,
6:06.
it's a 2-day trip. It's supposed to be 3 days, but we did 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna call our meeting together at 6:06. If you would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Mangus,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Keaton,
Here.
Robo,
Here.
Yarrow.
Here.
We're all here. And that is, in and of itself, is a beautiful thing. All right. Set and adjust the meeting agenda for our special meeting.
Mhm.
Anybody have anything? It's pretty much set, and if we don't get to it, it's on the next agenda as well. All right, any conflict of interest? Didn't think so. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to make a concerted effort to make sure that only one person is talking at a time. I understand that was a problem we had at our last meeting, just in an effort to make sure that between the people here in town hall and people that are attending by Zoom, that everyone can hear what's been said and who it was said by. To you gentlemen on the PC, please, yep. Tuck in that microphone. In the audience, yep, and the leaning back. Active speaking. To those of you in the audience, if I am too loud, say something. I have the ability to overpower a microphone. You were hung up, Carl. That's why it was choking you. All right. So we are going to move on to public comment. I will remind everybody, we will have a public comment at the beginning and end of this special meeting. We will also have public comment at the beginning and end of the next meeting. But I will, your comments are welcome, but please be courteous not to make the same comment 4 times, because we are desperately trying to catch up and make up for the meetings that we've missed. So if you've said it, we've heard it, and just be courteous. I will give you an indicator if you're over your 3 minutes. That said, public comment is open for our special meeting. For people in town hall, correct, currently.
Good evening. My name's Vicki Beam, building a home at 6847 Baggs Road. Carl, it's good to see you here. Thank you all, as always, for your assistance in the township and leading us to where we need to go. I want to start out by saying that I am not against site condos. What I'm against is site condos being proposed in the position that they are right now with not having things in place. That's what I'm opposed to. I'm also opposed to where we're at in the process and being told that it's not to worry about it until there are shovels in the dirt. And that's a little disconcerting to me as well. But I wanted to cover a couple of things in looking at what we're doing. And one other thing, in one of the last meetings I was in, something was brought up about somebody said that developers are evil. There's been nobody that I've heard that has said that. So I'm really not sure where that came from. I just want that to be clear as well. But now is the time for the township to get informed, follow the master plan, zoning ordinance processes, and enabling the state law. As the township is not finished and is in just now working on correcting where we're at with zoning ordinances, the township cannot review the proposed Baggs Road site condo project until such standards are adopted and published. We've talked a lot about maintaining rural character of the township, and really, I think that's all of our goal. I've asked this in the board meeting. We've had a couple of board members come out by Baggs Road. I know a lot of you are familiar with Baggs Road. You said you grew up in that area, but actually come out there and take a look at the proposed property for this site condo. It does not fit with the rural character. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment in-house this evening?
Linda Slopesma, Miami Beach Road. So I have a couple comments about your agenda topics today on setbacks and on marijuana. So first of all, regarding the setback updates, I read that package a couple times in order to make sure I understood it. And the first thing I'd like to say is for those of us that need to read that and understand that and don't have as much knowledge as you folks around the table, it's really important that you be very clear in your tables. Some of your tables have blank spaces in them where I'm not sure what I'm supposed to assume should be in there if there's nothing in a blank space. And what I mean by that is in table 1 under setbacks, it has R1, but it has no use noted. And so this is just a small thing. If you could please make it as complete as possible. I wanted to just remind everybody here that last November, December 2021, we heard a lot of community concerns expressed about a proposed development in the Moore Crisp Road area. A lot of people were very concerned about that. It was a proposal that would have brought hundreds of people to that specific small area. The multifamily housing and campground proposals were very high density, raising several quality of life concerns for people that lived in the area, such as noise, traffic, and light pollution. I don't live in that area, but I could understand what they were concerned about. I guess the big question is do these revised setbacks address those concerns and protect the community from that sort of proposal? Because I think it was kind of an overwhelming response from the public that they were very concerned about that many people in that small of an area and the impact on the community changing the character. The other thing I'd like to observe regarding setbacks and when we talk about zoning districts, and so this also applies to topic number 3 about the zoning map. Quite frankly, the zoning map is pretty difficult to read, particularly because there's no labels on any of the roads. And a lot of the colors are really similar. So, honest to God, I can't read the thing. And I don't think I'm the only one that's having trouble. So I would ask you to figure out some ways to make it less confusing and more easy to distinguish. And so, increase the size of it or do something to help us all understand what you're trying to communicate when we read the zoning ordinance. The last thing I'd like to address relative to setbacks is commercial campgrounds. You've noted these in section 12.12 for both the ag and the RC district. And it sure looks to me like we would allow a 320 campsite campground in our ag district with only 100-foot setback from the neighbors. And I guess I would just question, is this too many campsites? That seems like a lot. And should you maybe specify a maximum? You in your requirements, you were specifying kind of a density per acre, and maybe you should be putting a max on that. Look at other area campgrounds that work well in the community, and maybe you should put a limit on that. I would have similar concerns regarding the requirements for multifamily housing in the RC or the commercial districts. How big do you want those developments to be able to be? Like how many people in a certain area? So I'm just a little concerned based on what a lot of people are saying these days. Now I'd like to move on to marijuana real quickly. The facts about marijuana is we've been struggling with the topic for 1.5 years now. The lawsuit against the township filed by the same farmer who originally requested that the township issue ordinances for marijuana is stalled in mediation. Therefore, a jury trial is scheduled for September 20th, 2022. The people of this community will finally get to vote a year later than originally planned on prohibiting recreational marijuana businesses in the township on August 2. You may want to save yourself some potentially wasted work by just deferring additional work on this until August. It's just an observation. Nevertheless, the key question that seems to be overlooked in the draft that I looked at again today is that where are you planning to put 120 marijuana permits in this township? 120 reduced from the over 300 original is still a really big number. Currently, the draft indicates you would allow it in the agricultural and industrial districts, which represents about 17 square miles. So how do you think the management of these nuisance businesses will go if you scatter them across the entire 17 square miles? I want to remind the group here, because some of the people that are on this commission were not here last fall, is that one of the key takeaways from the visits to the other communities with marijuana businesses was those communities were keeping those facilities close together to ease the burden of oversight and to irritate the least number of people in the community with the known issues that will occur with odor, pollution, traffic, and crime. You can Google the odor issues in Cadillac and Birch Run if you're interested and see how they have had to recently enact new rules to protect the non-marijuana property owners from odor problems. Maybe instead you should consider expanding the industrial district to accommodate all these permits, or you could revisit using the commercial district, which you had in it originally, but now has been removed, with the goal of clustering the marijuana special uses along M72 where there are minimal homes. If you continue to specify the ag district, I really urge you to consider either an overlay district within the ag district for the marijuana or limit the number of locations that you will allow, since people can have multiple licenses at a location. Lastly, I don't think it's a good idea to allow loopholes in the zoning ordinance for variances to be granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. We all know that marijuana is a touchy subject, and why would we want to further frustrate the public at large, given the risks, by allowing variances to the ordinance that you all create? Clearly, the most likely request would be with respect to setbacks, which would further impact the value of neighboring properties. So again, I think we need to think about everybody's property rights. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have any additional public comment from Town Hall? Okay. Do we have any public comment from Zoom? Please use the raised hand icon or wave at Lois to indicate that you would like to participate.
Connie Highmore.
Floor is yours, Connie.
Good evening, Connie Highmore, Baggs Road. Thank you all for your efforts and your diligence in working on the Planning Commission. I know your job is not easy. I'm not against development in Whitewater Township. I am against the proposed site condos as they were presented on March 2nd of this year for over on Baggs Road. Growth is happening all around us. As I read through some of the 2009 survey that is posted on the township's website, it seems that the people of Whitewater Township have let you know what their expectations are. The master plan should always reflect what the residents hope for in the area that they live. That's a tough job for Whitewater Township Board, the Planning Commission, and zoning. But more important, it's a very important job. It's one that all of us are hopeful for in the community that we want to live. So please continue on and take your jobs seriously as you do, and do what's right for the people of the township. We appreciate that, and we thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Do we have any other public comment from Zoom?
No other hands up.
Okay, there are more opportunities. We are going to move on. All right, gentlemen. We have our special meeting agenda. We have no public hearings, no approval of minutes, no correspondence for this meeting. Reports and presentations will be at our regular meeting coming up at 7 o'clock. Unfinished business. Article 12 setbacks. I would like to go through this and get as far as we can. It is the probably the closest to being completed, but it is a critical item in that we received a lot of feedback with the proposed development on 72, and it brought to light a couple of items that we were unaware of. This is our opportunity to address those. If we aren't sure how restrictive we want to be, if we can compromise on some limitation, that is probably going to be a safer bet than what we have currently right now, which is no limitation at all. So we can revisit it again, but let's see how far we can get. All right, we've made it through building sizes. That is fairly much the same. Residential districts. There aren't any proposed alterations until we get down to agricultural and recreation. The real goal here is to determine the maximum number of campsites per acre and determine a maximum number of cabins, if at all, per acre that would be allowed for a campground if they want to have some permanent locations. That would be cabins, tiny homes, anything of that nature. Based on input that we've had at other meetings, I set it at, in our written document, at 8 campsites per acre and 2 cabins per acre. How do you feel about that? Is that splitting the difference? Is that something we can work with?
Doesn't seem like a lot. Like 2 per acre is, because an acre is pretty big. I mean, what are all these lots right here? I mean, these are like a 10 acre, like for the lot next door.
Well, this is an R2.
Right. But I mean,
So
I'm
that
just
would
saying
be,
that you're talking about a huge acre
Mhm.
with, I think the max that you can do is what, 400 square feet, or was it 200 square feet? So you basically have this huge hunk of land with these little itty bitty cabins, because those cabins can't go any bigger than, I forget if it's 200 or 400, which is.
I think it's 600. I believe our ordinance has it at 600 or 640.
The state says,
Okay,
that's what I was going by. My camper
Yeah.
that's sitting over at my property, that's 200 square feet.
Mhm.
So it's pretty small.
Mhm.
I guess that's what I'm getting
Mhm.
at. And there are definitely more cabins than that over at, say, well, Timber Ridge, I think is the only place with cabins in the near vicinity.
Okay.
The other campgrounds have cabins, but, and to bring up a point that was made earlier, like if you go down to ever-flowing waters, I mean, those campsites are, they're really condensed, but they don't have anybody around them either. So, they make it work. It's nice. But I guess in my mind, I think 2 cabins per acre just doesn't seem.
well, and I think one thing to keep in mind, at least my thoughts, and maybe we need to clarify it more, is that that would be overall density. That doesn't mean that this 1 acre could only have 2 cabins. It means cumulatively on your 20 acres, you will not have more than X number of campsites and cabins. So you're counting the whole property, all 20 acres or 30 acres
Well,
in our ordinance,
there are
but
there's a state regulation for commercial campgrounds.
Mhm.
It's in here somewhere. I can't find it, but I did copy it on here and I have it at home, but if you look at that, I think that was 1988. It was, and it hasn't been updated since then. But that includes, you have to have a roadway between the campsites. There is a setback requirement, I forget what it is, from the roads. But in between the campsites, there has to be a road that I think is 20 foot wide. And then there is requirement for bathrooms, all kinds of things. So you can't take the 40 acres and say you divide it by the whatever number you want per acre. That won't work because there's got to be roadways in there, bathrooms, all kinds of stuff required by the state. And any commercial campground we have has to meet their requirements in addition to ours. So we can't just say that you're gonna have 300, you have what, how many acres was it? 300 campsites. No, you can't. You have roadways in there, you have buildings, bathrooms, outhouses, you have all kinds of dump sites. All that is required by the state. So we look at this, I just don't know. I went over and looked at the state park, and it has, and I have all of their campsites listed and sizes at home. But that's an old campground, and today with the bigger camp campers that you have than what we had back in the eighties. Campsites need to be a little, I think the state is, what is it? I forget, 15 by, it's 400 square feet, but it's 15 or 20 foot on the road. And then depth can be whatever, but they need to be bigger than that today. And I think that any commercial campground would address that, or else they wouldn't be able to rent their campsites to a guy with a 40-foot trailer or RV. So I don't know, you know,
I think anything we're looking at
it's
is,
in the topography. You know, if you have a site and it's got a pond in it and some other things, I don't, you know, I think what Kim said about, you know, it's per acre for the whole site, but realistically, it's not gonna be as many as people think it is because of the requirements for roads and there's so many toilets required for, depending on the number of campsites, there's a lot of things required that we're just talking about setback and sites per acre, right?
a developer may calculate the number of sites they can have on their 30 acres. But looking at this in terms of overall density, they may put all of their campsites on 10 acres in the middle and leave it wildlife around the outside. It's in residential development, you'd call it clustered development. So they may clump all of their housing together, but what we're looking at is how large, do we want to put a maximum total on it? And can we at least come up with some guideline, how many cabins, how many campgrounds, so that we, because right now we have no limit. And I think we, other than the state limit, but the state, I think is I don't think that fits our township to go as high a density as the state allows.
But, you know, keep in mind, the campsites have to be on a road. One side of it has to be on a road that is something like 20 foot wide. So you could have two roads, but you just couldn't have a whole bunch of them against each other. You can't do that. And then you have to have a room for something, what is it, 15 or 20 feet on each side of a camper. So there's a lot of things involved that is required by the state in addition to us, and they're not going to be able to jam a whole bunch of stuff out in there. You have to have the setbacks required. You have the space between the campers. You have the road. And so
All of that has to be calculated.
yeah, all that has to be met.
All right, Al, your input on,
I know, like in Florida, a lot, apparently they don't have a lot of control, because when you pull in there, it's hard to get in there. And then when you put your slides out, there's a lot of times you've got a few inches from touching your neighbor's slide. So there, I agree that we definitely need to try to set some limit to that, because like at Disney, they've got a very nice park there, and they've kept the width. You can back in there and you have got about, when you get your slides out in your camper in there, you've got probably 10 foot on each side of separation. And they have cabins there as well. And what they've done, what looks like what they've done with their cabins, they have the cabins, and then it looks like they've got enough room they have a handicap access out, and then they have a spot here to park your car. A little bit of room, I'd say 3 or 4 feet, and then another cabin. So they've taken into account the parking of a car, handicap access to get up into the cabin. And by doing that, that gives you some separation.
a good spot.
Yeah.
The 2 cabins per acre that I have listed here is based on, that's twice the density. Or that is the same density as housing would be in those districts.
Right.
So
They're houses.
I know they're not houses, they're cabins.
Like 1,500 square foot versus 200 square feet.
Mhm.
You know,
I
we're
understand.
talking about something that I don't really see a whole lot of difference if you have a 1,500 square foot area and you say, okay, this can be for a tent or it can be for a camper. What's the difference if there's a cabin?
Okay.
Because they're all the same
Size.
Size, basically, and that's what my point was. So,
Okay.
because somewhere in there, and I've forgotten, I looked at all this stuff 2 months ago when we talked about it, but there is a minimum, it's either 1,200 square feet or 1,500 square feet per campsite, which accommodates the camper, the picnic table, the bonfire, and like 2 cars. Now, should we say, all right, we want every campsite, regardless of what's on it, to be 5,000 square feet, but then you're still gonna get like what, 20 per acre or whatever? But then we can say, okay, so for every 100-acre campground, only 80 acres can be used for camping. The other 20 acres has to be for greens and whatever, gymnasiums, because it seems like, you know, since I've had this job, that's been the issue with all of these, whether it's the site condos, the campground, there's no green space. I mean, how bizarre is that? So nobody wants to have, you know, max amount with nothing else around it. That just sounds horrible to even as a place to stay anyways.
Okay.
But like a motorhome itself will take up 350 square feet.
Easily.
Just that.
Yeah.
That's without a slide. That's without the car you towed behind you for a place to park.
The state regulation requires 4 feet from the camper to the end of, what I call it the lot line.
Okay.
You have to have 4 foot all around, to be able to walk around it.
Right.
On
We
each
want-
campsite. Now, the state regulation was 1,200 square foot
Per campsite.
minimum, actually, was it minimum
Yeah.
back then?
Yeah.
And that was 1988.
And so
That would
I don't know
put
if
an
we wanna-
extremely,
I mean, that's
High
required by the
density.
state.
And so the-
Should it be more? Probably gonna be more in the, you know, let's say 1,500, whether we need to specify that or not, I don't know, because the, you know, commercial people coming in are gonna have to make these, there's a site you can go to that recommends today new campsites. It's got all kinds of stuff in there to, you know, radiuses to allow campers to come in, and it shows different sizes, one for the camper, another for your picnic table and your cars.
Which I don't think we need to get that technical.
Anybody that's gonna build a commercial campground today is gonna
keep
have
in
to
mind,
accommodate bigger campers than what was anticipated before. So I don't know.
keep in mind that the proposed campground that we had on M72 met all standards.
And
per the
looked
state.
I got my magnifying glass out and looked at the campsite, because I was sure it wasn't big enough, but it was.
It is technically,
And
they all
and
were.
the only thing is, that whole thing didn't allow for playgrounds or anything
No,
else. was
it
just
had
wall-
none of the bling. Al,
That's-
you had something, and then
Yeah,
Mike, you're
the
up.
city of Munising built a new RV park,
Mhm.
and it is beautiful. It's like a 60-foot bag. So you can get in there, your car can sit in front, so you can unhook and park your car in front or your truck. And then you
That's
have
nice.
probably about, I'm gonna say probably about 6 foot on this side, but your awnings, you know, if that awning's out, that awning comes out probably
Mhm.
8 foot. And there's enough, and then you still have some space. So if you took the 3 foot that the slide's out, the 8 foot of the RV, the 8 foot that the awning is out, and added a number there for your space between the two, and 60 foot in depth for an RV park. I mean, it's beautiful because everybody has plenty of room.
Yeah,
You know.
sounds nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that one there, you can actually pull up. I think you can actually see that one online if you pull it up. And
That's
they've
helpful.
done a tremendous job on that. And they've got the 60-degree, you know, for backing in so you can get in. But those setbacks there seem to be nice at 60-foot number.
Mhm.
Or something like that.
All right. Mike, your input, and then I'm gonna go around, just get a number in mind. I want to go around and each one of you give me a number of campsites and cabins per acre that you were willing to consider.
Mhm.
And we'll see if we can hit a midway point.
Well, I have a question, and that is eight campsites per acre and 2 cabins. Does that mean 10 units per acre?
No, I would, in my mind, that's 8 campsites or 2 cabins.
Okay,
And yes, that is not specified and would need to be.
right. Okay, so,
Or, 4 campsites and 1 cabin, but I'm looking at overall, or at least the way I have this targeted is to look at overall density for the total acreage of the property. Whether they shove everything together in the middle or put it off on one side next to the lake or don't
Whatever they
care.
want to do, right? Yeah.
Unless we, and we can also change the setbacks as well, but
That was my main question, and I would say that we could probably, I kind of like the 2 cabins per acre thing, but we might be able to increase by a couple, the number of campsites.
okay.
Still have plenty of room.
Well, let me have you go first. How many, if you were the sole deciding person, how many campsites per acre?
I would say 10
Okay,
per acre in 2 cabins or 2 cabins.
okay. Alex?
Okay, 43,000 plus square feet per acre.
Mhm.
With minimum, by the state, I'll just round up 1,500 square feet.
I think it comes out close to 20.
We want to, I mean, I almost feel like we should just say like one whatever per 5,000 square feet. That's huge.
Mhm.
So that would end up being 20 somethings per acre. But then there also needs to be the 20% of any given needs to be for greenscaping, playgrounds and stuff. But then out of that too, you still have to add in the roadways, you still have to add in the bathrooms for RV campgrounds. You don't need all the bathrooms and stuff. Bathrooms, you have to have X amount of bathrooms per tent. But when you have RVs, you don't need as much stuff.
There are different calculations.
Yeah.
All of that is handled by the state.
Yeah, so if we just said, okay. I mean, I think that if we just said something like, you know, 1 cabin or 1 RV or 1 tent or something per 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. I think kind of make things a lot easier.
Okay,
Because again, I don't see the difference in whether it's a cabin or an RV, because in all honesty, some of these new RVs with, you know,
Are
4+ slide
huge.
outs, they're
Mhm.
much bigger than a 200 to 400 square foot cabin.
so 4,000 to 5,000 would be 10, like Mike said,
Yeah,
sites. And, but you'd say whether it's a cabin or a campground, you don't care.
I don't think it should matter.
All right. Carl, where are you at with this?
5,000 square foot for 1 campsite. I think, no, that's not gonna fly. Because we're talking, the state requires 1,200 square feet. And that's about what they run over at the state park. And you look at all the big, it needs to be bigger than that, but 5,000 square feet, that's, I go, what is it, 4 times as big? That
Well-
doesn't, that to me is way too much, but I would think at least 1,500 square feet for a regular campsite, and as far as cabins go, I would agree with 2 per
Okay.
acre.
I think there's a little discrepancy here in that some of us are thinking of total density.
Yeah,
And some of us are thinking after you remove your green belt and your roads and your bathhouse, you can only calculate the space that's left. And I know for me, I'm thinking overall of the land that you have, you can fit X number on that property as long as it meets state rules. So we just need to get on the same page with that.
so you're talking about, yeah, because I can say if you divide an acre up by whatever size campsite, that doesn't work because you have to have to accommodate roads and buildings and setbacks.
You're just looking at maximum
Yeah,
density.
I just, so I don't know. I would say 8 maybe.
We have currently a limit. The current rule is it has to be a 40-acre parcel for any of this to happen. So just so everybody's aware. Al, Where are you at?
The cabins, you know, it depends on the cabins. Are these like the tiny home type things is what we're talking about?
It could be a tiny home, it could be
It's like a camp for a campground.
yeah, or a year-round trailer. However, our camping guidelines for the township say no year-round residency.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
But-
it was designed to make sure that a campground did not become a trailer park,
Yeah. Mhm.
is really, I think, the intent behind that.
So I just wanted to reiterate. So clear about, so the state says anything over that 200 square foot or 400 square foot, it's no longer a cabin, it's a house. So that's why I keep making that.
Okay.
Because if you say, okay, you can have 2 cabins on an acre, and somebody comes and puts in a 2,500 square foot cabin, well, then it's not a cabin, it's a house.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, this would be fitting the definition of a cabin, which we have in our ordinance, which I believe is either 600 or 640 square feet.
I think it's 600.
600, okay.
And that includes like patio with the deck.
650?
Flip your page over, it's on there, yeah.
Okay. So, yes, that would, what we're really looking at is transient versus permanent.
Mhm.
So, okay, and so Al, you were at,
I was thinking on the cabins, the 4 per acre.
okay,
And in the campgrounds, there are the campers, 10.
well, looking at
You
that,
see that?
I'm fine adjusting from 8 to 10. 8's where I was at.
Okay.
So if we can agree, does 10 work for everybody? 10 campsites, all right. And we have on cabins, we have everything from 2 to 10. We have 2, 2, 4, 2, and 10. Do you want to bump it up to 3? Or the majority was it 2?
Well, now that we have a specific number on the cabins,
Mhm.
and they're really not any bigger than some of these campers are now.
Mhm.
I could go with 4.
Okay,
I would be all right with that.
does that work for you, gentlemen?
Does for me, yes. Does that
Okay.
work for you?
So that's more than houses would be allowed in the area, but still limited. At least there is a limit. Right now, there's no limit. Does that work for you, Carl?
I'd rather steer, I don't.
I mean, that's something almost no one has
We're
taken
talking
advantage
about,
of.
what, 600 square foot maximum.
Mhm.
And,
But we're talking, really, the big difference is we're talking about a permanent structure
yeah, I know,
versus a transient.
yeah, but these are not supposed to be year-round homes.
Right.
These are-
Correct.
Right.
these are-
These are supposed to be, in essence, 3 season. Although they may be built as 4 season.
No, four's too many for me. If I think of my lot, putting 4 little cabins on it, that's too many.
Okay.
I prefer to start with 2, something later on, if something.
We can
tells us
revisit
we
it
can
if
do
we
more,
have
can always do more.
a reason.
I think
It's hard to do less.
because we're talking about a commercial enterprise. We're not talking about your private, we're not talking about private campgrounds. We're talking about a commercial enterprise. If you, Carl, please go to Timber Ridge, because we're not talking about a state campground. We're talking about a privately owned or commercial campground. And if you go to Timber Ridge, they have cabins, they have park models, they have RV sites. And let me tell you, they have 20 per acre. And it's just mixed. They don't say, okay, well, we're only gonna have X amount of cabins in this spot, then they just have it all mixed. But then when it comes to tents or not having full hookups, they're kind of in a different spot because they're smaller area.
My point is, do we want that? I don't think we want that. I don't want to see something like
Well,
that.
then we should just say no campgrounds at all.
And
I'm just saying
Timber
you
Ridge,
don't
I mean-
have make this with little small sites, you need to put a whole row of them
Let's
in
just say
there.
no campgrounds. let's just do that and be done. We have a campground.
Yeah, you have campground, I just don't think we want to do it like Timber Ridge
Okay.
in our township. That's too many.
We also need to realize Timber Ridge has a massive amount of green space,
They do.
Both.
Yeah,
both internally that they own, but also
Plus
backed
the
up to
state.
state land.
yeah.
Um,
But see, I think
it does create a different
I think that comes back to,
circumstance.
you know, okay, so if we do 10, whatever you want per acre, but then they're 25% of, you know, okay, so if we have a 40-acre minimum for a campground, 10 of those acres has to be allotted towards green space. And then out of that 30 acres, then you guys still have to do your roads and your bathrooms and all that. So, and however it works out, you can't have any more than 10 whatever per acre. Because otherwise, I mean, there's a point at which to do all that work, they still gotta make money.
Mhm.
And if we say only 2 or 4 cabins per acre, there's just not that much, really, because they're already gonna have all the other.
I think this may be a solution in search of a problem. We've only ever had one person put in cabins, and that is in a campground where they were already pre-existing. They didn't build them for this. I would personally, I would feel more comfortable maybe keeping it a little more restrictive. And if we have a specific developer come to us and say, I really need more than that, evaluate it at that time.
Okay, that's fair.
That sounds real good, because he could come with a plan, and we could look at what he has for distances in
Yep.
between.
Exactly. So
But
could
this-
we?
This would also give them something to start with, too.
Yes,
Yes.
give them an idea, hey, we're not looking at maximum density. Can we strike a compromise at 3 cabins per acre? Does that work?
Yep.
All right, we're getting somewhere. All right, moving down, multifamily housing, and we're running out of time. This is looking at setting things right where we intended for them to already be. 1,100 square feet of lot area per dwelling. That is 4 apartment units per acre. That is exactly what we have always had as our density in our multifamily district. That is not a change. It is simply when we expanded multifamily to allow it in our commercial district, we didn't carry over the rule from one district to the other. So this is just applying what we already had as standards to both areas. Does this work for everybody?
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're going right back to what we
It
thought we
works for
had.
me, yes.
Perfect. All right. We are going to move on. That will also apply to the industrial district. I can't see anybody putting apartments in the industrial district, with one exception. Are we all okay with leaving that as allowed in the industrial district? We have tiny, like 2 lots left in the industrial district total. Should we eliminate apartments from the industrial district?
I wouldn't think so. I mean,
Okay,
because, you know, it'd give an opportunity to possibly use the property.
Right, because,
does that work for everybody?
yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, because now the new thing is where you have your shops and stuff in the bottom. And
Mixed.
up, yeah,
Okay. Marijuana, we have a spot just set aside. There's no graph there, but at some point, no one is currently proposing a challenge to our medical marijuana. So it is reasonable for us as a planning commission to anticipate medical coming forward at some point. So we will at least need some graph there. Special situations, this is all carried over from the existing rules we currently have. Animals. And we're almost done. We might get it done. Under animals, we currently have different rules in different parts of our ordinance, depending on what page you look at.
Yes, we do.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, dirty secret. Where you put your chickens depends on which chapter you read. So we want to resolve that while we're here. We have a 2.5 acre minimum for, shall we say, farm animals everywhere. I have, the top is what we basically currently have, 2.5 acre minimum, 100-foot setback for all farm type animals. Or we could break it down by horses and livestock, chickens and rabbits, dog kennels. Chickens and rabbits currently are listed as 40 feet from the lot line or 100 feet from the lot line, depending on where you look. So we need to pick one.
Myself, I like the 40-foot for the chickens and rabbits. I mean,
Does anyone object to going with the 40-foot for chickens and rabbits?
Not I.
And that's for their housing. Some people have free range chickens, but they're going into their coop every
right,
night.
they still have a house to go into.
And if you read our guidelines, there's a restriction on roosters.
You're saying, what, 40 foot from the lot line for what, for the?
For your housing.
For the
So the
kennels?
chicken coop has to be 40 feet from the lot line. That is actually more restrictive than downtown Traverse City.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have 100-foot lots on the lake, and we had one family move out
Mhm.
because they wanted chickens,
Yep.
Right,
and they moved.
right. And I
So,
mean, chicken,
because I guess they had them and somebody complained, and
right,
My sister-in-law raised chickens on the roof of their apartment complex in China.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be very low maintenance.
Yeah.
But 40 is what we have. This is proposing not to change, just to pick one.
I don't have any problem with it.
No, it
Okay.
sounds more than reasonable.
Does the second list then, the or replace Article 37 standards, the bottom one, so horses and the livestock would be 2.5 acres, 100-foot setback to the housing of
Mhm.
chickens and rabbits, 2.5 acres, 40 feet. Do we need the 2.5 acre restriction for chickens and rabbits?
I don't think so. I
I don't-
Rabbits,
At 2.5 acres is a
Yeah.
lot to have 4 chickens.
we raised them on an 80 by 200-foot lot. I think
Exactly.
30 of them.
you know,
Exactly.
And then chickens back in the 40s and 50s. I mean,
I had a family that had chickens in our condos.
Nobody here has 2.5 acres.
I do.
Well, I mean, I'm
I
talking
do.
about right here.
Yeah, he means
Oh, right.
down here.
Yeah.
And there are chickens down here. And there haven't been any problems with the chickens down here.
Roosters.
Peacocks.
So, yeah, I mean, so what do we say?
So
Could we remove that restriction?
we can just remove that restriction on the size of the lot in
Mhm.
which you house chickens,
Mhm.
but you have to be 40 feet from the lot line.
right,
Yep, there you go.
right.
Mhm.
That
There you go.
works.
Yeah.
Okay, and dog kennels currently is a 10-acre minimum. This is not your personal pet. This is if you're running running and training sled dogs. You have hunting kennels where you're running a pack of
Mhm.
dogs, or breeding establishments, housing kennels, those type of things. So those require more oversight.
Or a regular dog kennel.
Right, or, breeding establishment, housing establishment, et cetera. These are the current guidelines that work for everybody?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Everything else in 12.17 is just moving things. There are 2 more items for us to get to. We will have public comment again, but I'm going to try to push through these last 2 items and hopefully we'll still stay on schedule. So F under 12.17, all of those rules are just rearranging them from a graph where you couldn't figure out what they were talking about to itemizing them individually. And then F, there shall be a 30-foot, whatever size, setback in all directions between multifamily residential structures in any district. We don't, if it's one property owned by one person, we don't have a setback other than 10 feet between buildings. 10 feet between buildings per the fire code works for everybody, that's fine. If we want more space than that between buildings, we need to specify it. It's entirely up to you, gentlemen. Do we need more than 10 feet between apartment buildings? Given our type of fire department, I'm kind of inclined to say that it needs to be a little more space.
I would think so too, and it helps to keep the density down by putting more space between the units.
Okay,
You know, I was thinking a number like 20 feet, because you could, if you, in the case of a fire or whatever, you could actually drive something through there if you needed to.
Mhm.
10 foot, it's not gonna fit.
You're limited, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
often,
But this, you could get it through it, so,
especially if you throw a couple bicycles in the way.
yeah. Mhm.
Something's on fire.
Yes.
Right.
That's real small.
Exactly. It's-
We have to be, our homes, we have to be 15 feet from the lot line.
Exactly.
And you want,
That's true.
So
I would
there's-
think you'd have to be at least 30 feet between buildings.
yeah, that
I
would,
mean, again, for allowing for emergency,
Yeah.
what does the fire department say? What do,
We're restricting it to 10 feet. We're restricting it to 4 units per acre. So like a fourplex is really pretty much, or if you put a 8-plex on 2 acres, that would still fit. But just if we do have row houses or something like that, it doesn't create a barrier between units because that's handled by construction code. It's just saying between buildings,
Mhm.
we're gonna have X number of feet between each building.
What's this? 18, 20?
This room is 18.
Yeah. 20.
well, I like Carl's reasoning. For houses, each house has to be 15 feet from the lot line, so you have 30 feet between them.
Yeah.
So,
Stick
Why
with
should I
30?
get any
yeah, you
other?
stick with that, and that's a pretty reasonable thought, I think. I like that idea.
30 also gives you 10 feet of fire here, 10 feet of fire there, and 10 foot with the truck.
Yeah,
We'll reword it. Does anyone object to 30 feet?
no,
No.
Does that work for
No.
everybody?
Yeah,
All
30
right,
feet works. Yep.
then we will include that line and put it at 30 feet. Last item, and we actually made it through, well, almost all of this. Hardship. This says that the planning commission will grant variances. We don't grant variances, only the ZBA.
Yeah.
Can everyone agree that we need to change it to what it's legally has to be? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then the rest of it is just gibberish that has to do with the filing of it. And the other item I have in red there, we've already addressed. So we have completed Article 12. We can do one of two things. We can schedule it for public hearing and get this moved forward. Or I can bring you back a clean draft with the changes itemized. What?
I would think we're ready to move forward. I think we've
Okay,
discussed.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to take it to public hearing.
Okay,
I second.
I have a motion and a second to move our amendment of setbacks to public hearing. Any further discussion? All right, roll call, vote when ready, Lois. And that would be for June, correct?
Yes.
Move to public hearing for June.
Add that in.
Maybe we can drop one off of our list of pending.
Okay, Keaton,
Yes,
Darrow,
Yes.
Mangus,
Yes,
Jacobson,
Yes.
Robo.
yes,
All right.
all right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That concludes our special meeting, with the exception of public comment. I will open this up for public comment, but I will also make a quick courteous request. As soon as I close this meeting, I'm going to open it up for public comment. So, but you do have a right to make a public comment if you want to now. Is there anybody here that would like to say something now, as opposed to the next meeting in 3 minutes?
Sorry, 2 times here in a few minutes. Linda Slopes of Miami Beach. I just have a request or a suggestion for you. When you bring this to public hearing, I think if you could create a couple diagrams, you could probably communicate more effectively than what this table shows, to really explain to people the green space. And I'm talking about campgrounds, the green space, and then how your math is working out, because I saw a lot of you guys debating and some mistakes were being made mathematically. So I would suggest if you do a diagram, it would communicate more effectively to people and eliminate misconceptions. Thank you.
Okay. All right, yes,
I made a quick comment here before, I know you're gonna go on to
That's
the
fine.
next meeting, but while we're on topic here with the zoning map, I want to make a few comments
Mm-hmm.
about that. First of all, I noticed in the packet here, the Article 5 talks about a village council. Obviously, we need to change that. This might have been copied from another jurisdiction. Also, I'd direct your attention to 5.1C, where you talk about how split zoning parcels are dealt with. That's really an important issue in the township. You have hundreds of them here. I think this was also brought up earlier about having the zoning map and getting away from the verbal description of the zoning
Yes.
districts. That's a major thing for the township. I would say that you should eliminate that verbal text in there, so we don't have a zoning map and verbal text that are potentially in conflict with each other. I'm not sure that the map that's in the packet has a current parcel data in it from Grand Traverse County. It would be important to have the current parcel data that you have, so that if there's any splits that have happened over the last 5-10 years, it's going to show there. I think probably the big thing is the zoning map isn't really useful as it stands right now because there's no scale on it. So you really can't tell exactly how far a zoning district might come off of a road or a creek or whatever. And then finally, I think it was mentioned earlier that it would be possible to get a large 24/36 map. Communities have those all the time, and it's much easier. Then you could also potentially overlay that with an air photo and be able to see what's underneath it in addition to just the zoning map. But it's a big step forward. Congrats to you guys for moving on that. That's great.
we're trying. It's a big one to bite off. That's definitely the largest thing we've proposed to grapple with, but it's the most needed. Okay, do we have any other comments in town hall? I'm gonna move right to Zoom.
Connie Highmore?
Hi, thanks. Just want to let you know, I appreciate Zoom so much. Thank you for doing that for those of us who can't be there in person. And we're still having a little bit of trouble hearing. I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher this. Is it Mr. Darrow? Mr. Darrow? So that's the only one I can think of. Everyone else seems pretty clear, but it was hard to hear. I turned my mic up as high as I could, but thank you so much, everyone. Thanks.
Carl,
Yes.
you have to have your microphone
All
right,
right,
right at you.
I will try to remember to
Heidi,
speak into the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Pretty
Can you
much.
hear me? Okay, the only thing I want to add to the comment, and great job as always, this has been a really good meeting so far. Let's keep up the good work. Let's remember to be good neighbors. I have visited the campground that you discussed over on the other side of town by PGOs. Everybody needs to do a little homework. Fire pits, smell, and noise has been a problem. So we need to make sure we stay good neighbors and look into that and find out what setbacks we really need to do and make sure we're good neighbors, because it's hard to handle campground complaints when the poor person lives right next door. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Heidi. Do we have any other public comments from Zoom? Okay, we're gonna close it out. I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you. At 7:05. Hey, that's closer than usual. All right.
and now we have to pause. We have to pause.
Oh, just switch it out.
Yeah.
We are going to take a 5-minute break and start our meeting 10 minutes late, or 10 minutes late. If anybody needs to get up,